Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. West Coast Dogman Vortex, Shane Michael Crisp, and Todd Kmetz. I see you have made your way through the darkness and into the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Yet please, I must feed. That was absolutely delicious, and I do appreciate Mr. Metz and Mr. Crisp for allowing me to free myself from my shackles. Without further ado, it is time to take a walk into the madness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, yes, once again, you have found your way into the darkness of the Fox Den to sit around the late night fire. And, we have two hosts with us tonight that have set up the late night fire to burn the timber as the Midnight Society sits down again to figure out what is occurring with the Dogman. West Coast Dogman Project, aka West Coast Dogman Vortex, is in the house. And not only do we have Shane Michael Crisp, we of course have Todd Metz. How is everyone doing tonight?
Doing great, brother. Thanks for having us on tonight. We appreciate it and glad we can get this going finally for the first time in probably over half a year.
What about you, Todd, man?
Yeah, we're doing good. Thanks for having us, and looking forward to talking with you again. It's been too long, and looking forward to chatting and Dogman tonight.
Appreciate it. And to the audience, yeah, Shane and Todd. Actually, Todd had some stuff going on, but either way, their project they're working on, I believe that might have been the first live podcast I ever did. It was either that or second, but you got to make sure to go over and support what they're doing. As always, we're going to have the links up in the description. And I do know that Shane and Todd over there like to dive into some other cryptid and other topics that here I obviously only cover missing people, prehistoric, modern day predators, unknown canine sightings, etc. But yes, they do have a plethora of different stuff. So make sure to go over and give them, yes, the thumbs up. So Shane, man, what's new with you?
Well, not a whole lot, brother. I've kind of had to take a back seat to the cryptid world and focus on my new career and my family. I've got a 1-year-old daughter, it's already walking and talking and running around, and my son just started junior high, so diving into family life, cryptids had to take a back seat, and I just joined law enforcement back in June, so it's been really busy but hectic, and just, I miss the cryptids, but I still try to catch a podcast here and there, whether it's listening to Vic's or getting one of yours. I know you send me all your stuff, so when I get down, you try to stay up to date what's going on, but from what I've been seeing when I get on Facebook every once in a great while, there's not a lot happening with sightings as per se out here on the West. I haven't seen anything new. And I mean, unless Todd's probably found some stuff. I know he kind of runs the West Coast page for me when I've had to take kind of a hiatus since like I say, I rarely get on Facebook, but I still, like I say, I'm still madly interested in cryptids, mostly Dogman, but it's trying to balance life and cryptids. It's like you have to choose one, and unfortunately we had to take a hiatus, but I'm hoping sometime maybe this year Todd and I can have you back on, Kenny, or get a couple guests. It might be maybe sometime in the spring. Just depending on my career and my schedule, it's like I say, my life is like an LA freeway. It's backed up and it's going 100 miles an hour. So it's kind of congested, but trying to figure out what's priority. And obviously my family, like I say, they're my number one. So I'm going to do whatever I can to spend most of my majority of my time with them. But I still, like I say, I still find time in the mornings getting ready, ironing my uniforms before I got to go to work. I'll throw on a Vic podcast or something and listen to a Dogman encounter or something. So that's pretty much what I've been doing, man, for the last 6-7 months.
Great stuff right there, man. I love it. And what about you, Mr. Metz? What the heck you been up to?
Yeah, well, it's since I'm retired, not like an LA freeway, and it's been a number of decades out to LA County, and it was pretty bad back then, so I'm sure it's even worse now as far as traffic goes. But yeah, my life's not that bad. Yeah, just I'm trying to live the dream. I've been retired for a long time out here on the West Coast. I'm now in Washington, great state of Washington. Completely different than the East Coast where I'm from as far as weather goes, but real nice out here. And we still have some activity on the page. There hasn't been a lot of sightings that I'm aware of out here. Kenny, I think you may have a couple that you found out about that you could share with us as well, which we certainly look forward to hearing those for sure. And I'd love to hear some stuff from back east. I know you're up in the great state of Maine, so I'm sure there's some activity going on out there. So we certainly would like to hear about some of that if you wanted to share that with us as well.
Great stuff right there as well, my friend. And yes, to the audience tonight, Mr. Crisp has an excellent case from the GOAT, Linda Godfrey from California, that he is going to touch base with us on. And then we're going to head over to the East Coast from the original stomping ground of Todd in Connecticut and dive into something. But before we dive into that, and in just 1 second, I would like to hear a little bit of background check from both of you. But to give you a little chuckle here, dude, the Bruins are so freaking bad, man, that I can't even finish watching games recently. I just zone out. It's like my brain's like, dude, that's enough, man. And the worst part about it is we've lost 7 games in a row, okay? It's hard to do anything in life 7 times, but to lose 7 times in a row, yeah, great job. And then not to mention the Patriots were absolutely a dumpster fire too. So up here in New England, being a big sports guy, I haven't been too, pleased, obviously, as you can hear when it comes to things that I'm supposed to enjoy watching. But yeah.
No, I'm with you right there. My team's all in Northern California. Niners were trash this year, and the San Jose Sharks are a dumpster fire to watch. So I totally understand.
Todd, you watch any sports at all, my friend, or no?
Yeah, like I said, back east it was the Celtics. Out here, not so much. I haven't been really a huge football fan since the Rams left LA decades ago. Went to St. Louis, and I lost interest. And they did come back, but I never gained interest in watching the Rams again. So it was a basketball fan, and of course, I grew up in Connecticut as a Yankee fan. If I wasn't a Yankees fan, I probably would have been thrown out of the house by my dad, who was a diehard Yankees fan. So anyway, enough about that.
That's great stuff. And Shane and Todd, yes, to the audience, are co-hosts. And I would like to dive into basically how both of you got into where you are. I mean, Todd's spoken to me before about how he used to be, I believe, a game warden. Correct me if I'm wrong, so I don't put words in your mouth. And Shane's obviously mentioned to me before that he's had an interest for quite a long time. But to the audience, they're going to want to hear a little bit. So, yeah, Shane, if you want to fire away first and just how this sparked your interest, what got you into the Dogman topic and wanting to collaborate with myself and joining my science team and etc. And then same thing for you, Todd, man, like what got you interested in this topic, and then again wanting to come over and speak to myself and be interested in what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so I started with my interest in werewolves as a young kid. My favorite movie, I used to watch it all the time, was Stephen King's The Silver Bullet, and always fascinated with that movie, and never thought anything other than maybe Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and aliens were cryptids. That Dogman, I never was even on the radar. But about 4, almost 3.5, almost 4 years ago, a coworker of mine was listening to Dick Cundiff's Dogman Encounters and was telling me, hey, what do you think of this? And I just laughed at the name, and I started listening to a couple of the podcasts, and I just started getting a little bit more intrigued. Like, okay, a lot of people are seeing the same thing all across the United States. Is it a mistaken Bigfoot? But then they're describing it as having a snout with digitigrade leg structures and hands like a raccoon. I'm like, hey, this is a werewolf. The name Dogman just isn't intimidating like a Sasquatch or like Loch Ness Monster. But I started diving more and more into it, and then I just was so fascinated with, I wanted to see cryptid pictures of a Dogman. And I guess photos are subjective, and that's not one area of interest that I kind of dive in, because you get on Facebook and some of these groups have 20 red circles in one photo, and it's like, oh, they go and they take a picture of a tree line, say, hey, there's 20 Dogmen here. I'm like, okay, this is a little buffoon, but there's got to be more to it. More people are seeing these things. So I started diving more. I came across Paul Shapeshifters, got real familiar with going out in the field and doing that type of studying and research. And then I wasn't seeing nothing myself, going to certain areas where there was known Dogmen out here in California, and I just wasn't catching anything on photos. And like I say, photos can be subjective, but then I wanted something. So I created California Dogman Project in honor of my buddy Paul Chaffin's Kentucky Dogman Project. But then I already saw that Dev Rooney, the former Region 1 director of the NADP, already had a California page. So I was like, I didn't want to do that. So I started getting creative. I'm thinking, okay, I'll blend my two favorite colors of neon green and black, and started doodling up the logo. Then I came up with the name West Coast. I didn't steal it, but it was West Coast Choppers. I was thinking, I'm like, hey, there's no West Coast Dogman Project. And so I Googled it, tried looking to see if there was anything, so I didn't copyright or steal anyone else's idea. So I created West Coast, and then as it was like, I want to do interviews. I was inspired by Vic, so I wanted to hear other people's encounters, present something on YouTube to let the listeners know, listen in, and then they could be the judge if this person's crazy, making stuff up, or really believable. And then I met Todd. Todd moved out to Washington a few years back, and he reached out to me, and I was like, hey, dude, I'd love to have you. And he wanted to co-host. And Todd was only going to be on one episode, but then Todd was super interested in the subject too. And we just got to talk, and we became really good friends. And so Todd and I both were on this. I think we were doing almost a weekly podcast, or every other week, for a good year almost. And then Todd, that's what I love about Todd. Todd goes out and finds incredible researchers and authors and people and eyewitnesses, and because I super busy, Todd having a little extra free time, it helped out. And I think with our interests, we just meshed together so well. And I think, to me, I feel like we have a successful podcast, even though it is on a hiatus. We weren't in it for views or likes or anything like that, just trying to put out evidence and just hearing eyewitness accounts. To me, I think that is the most believable, what would you say, almost most believable testimonies that we have compared to photos, or it's just people saying their encounter or what they've seen or what their thoughts are, So yeah, I mean, when we created the Dogman Vortex podcast, to me, it just went off. It was like fireworks. We were just interviewing incredible authors, researchers and stuff. And Kenny, I know we even had you on. I think it was your first podcast, like you were mentioning earlier. We had you on because you were so interested. And then I met you, Kenny, and you became one of my good friends. And the topics, not just that, we talk almost on a daily basis on just Dogman or just life itself. So that's what I love about the cryptid community is we all share a common interest, but you meet people from all across the globe or across the nation, and people you might not ever meet in person, but people that have the same interest and become more of a friend, like a friend to you than heck, my own friends that live in the same town as me. I talk more to you guys than I do my own friends. So
Yeah, Shane, that's totally true. Out of here. Yeah, I really, the podcast that we did, I think they were, they brought a lot of information to a lot of people in the community. And we did try to bring the best people as far as researchers. We tried to get people to come on and talk about their encounters. We did have a number of people do that. And sometimes it's hard to do. It's hard to get people to come on and share this type of stuff with people, other folks, and because it's not something that is believable in mainstream science. So it's hard to sometimes talk about it and bring it out there. But I think the podcast that we did, the people that we had on, the interviews that we did together, were pretty good. I hope that people can go on and check out the Vortex podcast and check them out and see some of the guests. It's not about Shane and I, doing podcasts. It's about the people that we brought on to talk about these experiences and the information that they've gathered and to share with the interested people, who want to know about this bizarre phenomenon. And I know, Kenny, you've been doing a lot of research on this for a while, and I've read a lot of your stuff, listened to your stuff. We've talked on your show before, and I miss it. I haven't been doing too much with it lately. Yes, I was a part-time game warden back in Connecticut. That wasn't my primary job. That was a secondary job that I was interested in and was able to do 10 years. I wish back then, and this is going back into the 90s now when I was doing that I wish that I had known about Dogman back then, because I would have paid more attention to to things out in the field, because I spent a lot of time out in the field, and I can't really remember seeing anything that was out of the ordinary. But I would have paid more attention to it had I known about the phenomenon. Of course, I would have kept it quiet, being in law enforcement. Can't really talk too much about certain things. But a lot of people who were in law enforcement have now come out and talked about information and experiences that they've had, which is good. So anyway, I digress. So I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Beautiful stuff right there by both of you, and thanks for that update. As stated, I knew the majority of that stuff, but to the audience, yes, now you have a little bit of background check on the boys from the West Coast Dogman Vortex. And yeah, it's pretty gnarly stuff for sure. And yeah, I've been grinding away, just trying to get things, coordinated. I haven't worked on my book in a bit, but I really have just been trying to get my YouTube cranking and get it a nice heartbeat. And yeah, I've been collaborating with good people such as yourself and Steve Stockton, Jessica Jones, and the Hoggett Project, Barb Hartman. I mean, my whole entire list of the Midnight Society, my science team, all of them. Beautiful people. So that's pretty much what I've been spending all my time on, and just every time I find something interesting, just trying to send it out to people themselves that are able to find more information on it, update me, etc. So yeah, a whole lot of learning, and I try to learn multiple things in a day, and it doesn't have to be this topic, meaning when I go to bed at night, I usually find myself watching Extinct Zoo, talks a lot about prehistoric and modern day predators, and then highly compelling North O2, our ancient ancestors, and Miller Wilson, who's like a survivalist, etc. But like I always try to tell people, when I learn something from Extinct Zoo, I then also look for other sources. Even though now I know how credible he is, I still look around and then see, okay, well, what he told me, the BBC is also covering this. Oh, wait a second. The Boston Museum of Science has an article on this. So, okay, that actually means this guy knows what he's talking about. And then you get to a point where you just keep watching and watching, and then you're just like, wow, every time I fact check this or all these people, like Forrest Galanti, etc., it's always correct. So I'm like, wow, this is what I find entertaining is knowledge. Whereas a lot of people watch things that I wouldn't really find entertaining. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, an action movie, if you have it on in the background or such, can be cool and entertaining, but time's precious and I like to learn. And for me, educational things that are cool, like about dinosaurs, or how I learned that the wood frog can completely go ice cold, no heartbeat at all, frozen solid for 7 months, and then come back to life. Things like that, I don't know, are so entertaining to me. That's why I try to just really sit back and look at it as a photojournalist, realizing that, okay, I have images I can use and put up. I have research that we've all done. I have research that other amazing people have done that unfortunately are no longer with us, like Linda Godfrey and Jody Cook, and just any other amazing researchers that have just done things in general that have put time into this. I'm able to build off of that as well. Like Steve Stockton covering the missing persons topic. He was a huge influence for me to be able to sit back and then start plugging that into the stuff I do with like the Dogman, being like, wait a second, this person's missing right in this cave system area. Of course, is a national forest. Wait a second, how many Dogman pings are on file? Wait a crap. Okay, we have this many encounters. We got some strange footprints. Interesting. And we got vocalizations. But I then try to take it to the next level just because I'm a quote unquote photojournalist. Like I said, I'm not a scientist. Okay. And just because I head our science team, meaning I get us all together and I've recruited them, doesn't mean I'm a scientist. Okay. I am not. That is what they are for. Okay. And everything I speak about before I make sure to put it publicly, I talk to all of them to fact check myself. And I just think it's really important. And that's what's good about you guys, is just trying to look for answers, but not embellish things. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, what are we all here for? Okay. Are we here to get answers, or are we here to get entertained? And if we're here for the latter part, it's no wonder everyone laughs at what we're trying to do. But if we're here for the first part, well, maybe we can get this to the point of having more beautiful minds added to our science team, and then getting it to a point where you got some people like Jeff Meldrum and others, whether people like him or not, that guy's a brilliant mind, okay? And yes, I would love to have people like that added to my science team as well. So yeah, it's great stuff. And what do you both think about that?
Yeah, no, I think it's actually really interesting. And like you had mentioned, that there's people in this for entertainment that want to listen to hoaxes and believe that they're real. And then you also have people that are trying to present evidence as facts. And that's the thing with this cryptid community. It's clicky, man. You got certain people that might not like something that you might present as facts, or you dub a hoax to be fake, but they're going to call you out on it, kind of thing. So it's like, it's almost a revolving door, Kenny, and Todd and anyone that's listening. It's just a revolving door. It's just, are we ever going to get, if we, more, like you said, more people can come together and that are like-minded or open-minded, we can move further along. Like, I think that the Dogman phenomenon has hit a roadblock because of this discrepancies in the field. You know, if viewpoints don't align with someone else, then all of a sudden you're dubbed as a fake or a hoaxer, or something like that. I feel like the Sasquatch community has more researchers and more people that have eyewitness testimonies. I would say it's like Sasquatch encounters to one Dogman. It might be even 25 to 1, but the Sasquatch has also been more mainstream for a lot longer, and the general overall public I would say, let's say 55% would say that Sasquatch is more believable than a Dogman, because it's just been mainstream for so long. You see it in cartoons now, you see it in comics, you see it in the news. Oh, and where Todd's at, northwest of the United States. It's a hot spot. And then you look on the BFRO's. I'm not going to talk bad on the BFRO, but I'm just saying, if you look at their sightings map compared to the Dogman one, it's everything. There's way more sightings. So I think that hopefully in our lifetime, we can get something that's something 100% credible, other than the photo that's on the NADP's website in Northern California. When Jody had that photo verified, it was never, shown to be tampered with. That's, to me, is the most legit Dogman photo that we have. But then again, you only see the back part of the Dogman. And is it even a dog? It could be a shadow. It could be something. But obviously, when you invert the photo, there's something there. But with the Sasquatch, like I say, there's more people that we've had footprints. We've got hair samples. We've got dens. We don't really have, we're still in our infancy, in my personal belief, in the Dogman phenomenon. I believe people like you mentioned earlier, with Linda Godfrey, who dedicated her life to this phenomenon, moved it a little bit further than where it was before, because in the 90s, the name Dogman wasn't even mainstream. It was werewolf or wolfman but I feel like just in the last 25, 30 years, the Dogman phenomenon has grown a lot more. But hopefully in the future, we can get more open-minded people that are willing to collaborate together, like yourself, Kenny, like you're trying to get a science team, and more people that are going to try to help out this phenomenon grow further to where maybe 15 years down the road, or even 5 years down the road, it'll be more acceptable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that for sure, Shane. It's Todd back here once again. As far as research goes, it's folks like you, Kenny, that are trying to lead the charge, and forming the team like you've done, and trying to get like-minded people that are involved with it, make some sense out of it. And we've been saying that all along on the Vortex is, truth is out there somewhere, and the more people that take it seriously to listen to these people who have had these sightings, and encounters, because we try to differentiate between, what's a sighting and what's an encounter. We've talked about that a bunch of times on our show, and we could go into that at some point, but, only a limited amount of time tonight. So, I think it's good that, as many people as you've gotten involved with this, with this phenomenon, the more people that are going to be, involved, they're going to, eventually try to, find the answer, if it's out there, which we hope that it is. And, because it's just so many people, like Shane said, Bigfoot has been around for decades and decades, as far as people coming forward with encounters, and also, in the past, 15 or 20 years with Dogman coming forward as well. Are these misidentifications? It could be for sure between the two, cryptids, but not all, for sure. And Linda Godfrey, as a pioneer in the subject, and that's what got me started in all of this. Good probably 7 years ago now. With her, reading her books, and actually communicating with her a couple of times in the past. We need people that can follow in her footsteps and continue to do that. And I think Small Town Monsters is doing a good job with that, with books that are being produced by Aaron Deese, who we've had on the show a couple times to talk about his research in Texas and also in Wisconsin. Need more people that start to investigate, to try to correlate, try to bring some science to it, and try to analyze this as best as possible. I don't even really want to call myself a researcher, but I'm looking for answers, just like other people who are in this community as well.
Excellent stuff by both of you right there. And before we let Shane start to tell us a little bit about this gnarly California encounter, I would like to take a second to also acknowledge that growing up, Josh Gates, I always thought was pretty cool as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes some of the things with the professionals we work with, and we see some of the tracks that we think they are a well-known animal, but he has some pretty cool experiences and stuff, and I always thought he was awesome. But a really important one to me growing up was Autumn Williams, and she was a Sasquatch researcher from, I believe, Oregon, and she had some of the most amazing stuff I had ever seen and was just kicking butt cheeks in the field. Had a TV show called Mysterious Encounters, had a couple of books, and one of them was called Enoch. And all of a sudden, her last public appearance was in 2012. And I've tried to reach out and do everything in my power to figure out what happened to her. And the last known contacts with people that would have known her very well for the most part was around 2022. So, to anyone out there, if you could please help put me in contact with Autumn, because she had some of the most amazing evidence that is still used now. But unfortunately, she was bullied. And at this point in time, when she was a pioneer for the topic, she didn't really have a good support system to help her with that. So all this amazing evidence and all these old school VHSs I have literally have disappeared to time. Like, you can find like minimal stuff of her, but in my mind, I got a photogenic mind. I can see it all. And then when I watch it on the old school VHSs, it's all right there too. So it's important that we do remember people that, like both of you had said, put in great time to the field. And if anyone out there knows how I can get in contact with Autumn, or if she's well, and just spread the word about how amazing this woman really was. And if you are listening yourself, Autumn, please do contact us, because it is important for people to get the recognition that they deserve. And she's a straight up OG, and it's almost appalling that no one speaks about her and that she just got snuffed out. So yes, but Shane, I would like you to cover this really amazing encounter that you have from the OG Linda Godfrey.
Yeah, so this book, you can purchase it online. Todd actually sent me the link, and I ended up purchasing it. It's called The Real Wolfman, True Encounters in Modern America by Linda Godfrey. This comes out of Northern California, February of 2011. There's a gentleman, the eyewitness, his name is Anthony Cheney. Starts like this. It's called the Sunday Stroller. The location is Orville, California. Anthony Cheney works as a security officer in Northern California, but no amount of training or experience could have prepared him for what he saw in late February of 2011 on State Highway 70 near Orville, very near the Plumas National Forest, which covers well over 1 million acres of the northern Sierra Nevada. It was Sunday between 3 and 3:30 a.m., and the 34-year-old Cheney was on his way home to Marysville, California, from a part-time weekend job in Chico. He was nearing Orfear Road in his 2006 Chevy Impala at a speed of around 50 to 55 miles per hour when some kind of light-furred creature in a nearby field caught his eye. I had a real good look at it, Cheney wrote. Scared me right awake. It was standing and walking on two legs and looked right at me. Cheney slowed down and the creature dropped to all fours and began to take giant leaps across the field. Cheney could see it, muscles and long fur bouncing as the creature covered half the field in what Cheney estimated at about 12 seconds. Cheney had a good glimpse of a long wolf-like muzzle when the animal slowed and looked back to see where he was. It sped up again and headed towards the National Forest area. Cheney said he became a laughingstock at work when he told his colleagues what he saw, which he said was like, well, a werewolf. He remained undeterred and in fact became inspired to research local Native American legends about strange creatures. He discovered that the Maidu people told of something called I don't want to butcher this, but Kohunji, a hairy Bigfoot-like boogeyman who lives in the forest and eats human children. The Maidu also believed that shamans could shapeshift into bears. Perhaps they tried a few other animals on for the size as well. Cheney has found one coworker named Omar Tepete who did not laugh at all because his father saw something similar on his Orville ranch in the 1990s. Tepete said his father was out one night checking the the ranch's 10-foot galvanized steel fence line because something had been bothering the cattle. As he walked around, he came face to face with a 6-foot tall creature whose eyes glowed red. Tepete's father fired a few rounds from his shotgun at it, and it ran away. Red eyes are not usually reported with man-wolves, but these creatures don't always play by the adamantly tennis rules. So yeah, that's came from straight from Linda Godfrey. So right there, to me, it's pretty interesting. We've got sightings all up and down the West Coast.
That is great right there. And as you were narrating that, it reminds me of the OG playlist you had, man, where you were hitting up encounters. You were just like rolling right into it, man. You still got it. So at some point, yeah, you definitely should get back into that because you have the vibe cranking. And Todd, what the heck do you think about that, man?
Yeah, that's an awesome encounter for sure. It's like we were talking about before, or at least we were, tried to briefly mention it that, even if you took, 100 people and that saw something like this, and they reported it and it as a bipedal, upright canine type creature, that ran across the road in front of them, 50% of those people, maybe they're lying. Well, what about the other 50%? So you've got to think about how these encounters have affected these people. Why would they come out and talk about it unless they're looking for the 5 minutes of fame and of fame? Certainly not going to be fortune because there's no money that goes along with this. So what is it that that these people are seeing? And that's that encounter that Shane just read. I mean, that's an awesome encounter out here on the West Coast, and there's many others like that, and there's many others on the East Coast and in the middle of the country, of course. So, as we were talking before, Kenny, if you've got an encounter from Connecticut, I'd love to hear it if you want to read it, talk about it with us.
Yeah, definitely. As we are coming to a roundabout here, I will definitely tap on that. And great stuff right there by Mr. Kmetz for sure, because this is all a very bizarre topic that does have a lot of logic to it. And also, it's really hard to be logical. A lot of people are not logical about the topic. So, yeah, we definitely need to try to get that a little bit more straightened out for sure. And we are going to bust out a interesting encounter from the good old Connecticut area. And you said you wanted something new. So this might actually be one of the newest encounters in general that I've had a chance to field and look into. The good old February 2024 Bear Mountain. Campers, hikers, and other outdoor enthusiasts begin reporting feeling like they are being stalked and potentially terrorized by some sort of strange, large, human-like dog creature. Not wanting to sit around and see the outcome, almost every individual said they had the feeling that this being or creature wants to predate on them. Must be a nice little feeling right there. And that this thing walks upright with ease, but is in a hunched over mannerism as if to have some sort of spine issue or a large hump in its back, has pointy ears, glowing eyes, long, lanky arms, and a shaggy tail. It is also reported that the strange creature lets out unholy screams that sound like a, how do I say this, no longer wanting to exist woman mixed in with canine howls. It is also reported that this beast looks to be matted and unkept. So yeah, there we go. That's from February 2024. Like I said, Bear Mountains.
Wow, that's an awesome encounter from Connecticut for sure. Bear Mountain, I am familiar with that location. It's pretty remote. Even though in Connecticut there's not a whole lot of remoteness in Connecticut because it's such a small state. with a lot of people living in it, about 3.5 million people or so from the last time I knew. So that's pretty amazing stuff right there. So thanks for sharing that with us.
No, of course. And you being from that area, so you said that's definitely an area where if this is occurring, you could definitely see something like that dwelling in that type of area and not being spotted very consistently.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. Extreme Western Connecticut that borders New York is fairly remote. There's still quite a bit of land out there that people aren't walking around on every day. Eastern Connecticut, same thing. Eastern Connecticut is not very heavily populated, for sure. So there's certainly areas in state forests that are within the state of Connecticut. There's I can't remember the exact acreage of state forest in Connecticut, but it's quite expansive for a small state. So there's certainly areas that could, harbor, cryptid like this. And I'm not surprised at all. If you look into some legends of Connecticut, you'll read about the black dog being sighted in central Connecticut, and there's legends that go back, probably century and a half, 2 centuries on black dog sightings that were taking place in Connecticut. So, yeah, just because it's a little state and a lot of people live there, it doesn't mean that it's not capable of having some visitations by cryptids like that.
Excellent stuff right there. I appreciate it. And I kind of figured it must be a little bit similar to Maine. I mean, Maine's decked out with forest, but Connecticut's right up, in the Northeast for sure. So, Shane, what do you feel about that, man?
Yeah, no, I honestly do feel that it harbors, it just screams cryptids, especially in the Northeast, where Todd grew up and where you are, Kenny. Like, I think you mentioned on one of your recent podcasts that I wasn't aware of, that Maine is the most heavily forested state in the Union. So right there, if there's not a lot of land that's being touched or being walked, like Todd had mentioned, like Western Connecticut, that would just, to me, that's where I would first look for any known cryptid or sightings or something that big would want to be away from humans. You've got everything you need there. Probably a good source of food with deers and any other type of animal, but also heavy vegetation to be able to hide out and not be messed with.
Yeah, great stuff right there for sure. And I couldn't agree more because New England is old school as heck. And like you said, definitely up here in Maine, we have way more trees than we do people. And the majority of people that do live in Maine or in the southern part, once you start going up, not even half, okay? Less than halfway up, it all starts becoming heavy forest, okay? And then that's where it goes up into like Canada, and you could actually pop down. We were talking about this. Brian Barber actually was one of the first people, I believe, to ever say this to me. I think he was the first person, about how, because Maine, we have, a lot of people don't realize that the Michigan Dogman and stuff is not the oldest case of a documented dogman in the United States. It just happens to get acknowledged as. I mean, up here in Maine, I have 2 cases that predate that by almost 20 years. And think that if they were to then leave Maine, because some of the areas where it happened, all they would have to do is, if you look at a map, they would just go left, okay? And then now they're cutting up through Canada, and they could come down through Toronto, down into Michigan, and then into that Wisconsin area. So I'm not saying that they potentially first would have started maybe pushing their way down through Canada into Maine, then into Michigan and Wisconsin, but it's just a very interesting theory now, because we started off with a hypothesis, but it all really does make sense.
Well, you've definitely got some acreage up there. I mean, how many thousands of acres just in Baxter State Forest? I mean, it's just endless up there. And of course, southern New England is not like that. It's not heavily. It's been kind of well, in the 19th century, it was deforested basically because they cut all the trees down because before the coal, they were burning wood, and building
Yep.
houses from wood. So there wasn't a whole lot of trees left. And then even before that, the Native Americans would burn brush in the forest and stuff to clear the forest floor so that hunting would be better for them because they could see more and they'd be
Mhm.
able to get game a lot easier. So they would burn out a lot of the forest. So it's for sure New England can be a hot spot, and I know there's a couple of sightings in central Massachusetts, where I was living, just north of Springfield, off of Route 91, which kind of flanks the Connecticut River from the Canadian border all the way down into Long Island Sound. As the Connecticut River is almost 435 miles long from its little trickle near the Canadian border until it empties out in Connecticut Sound. But there was a couple of sightings there, and there's also a really interesting area. Kenny, you may want to take a look at this as well. It's called the Bennington Triangle, and you
Yep.
may have heard of it. And there's also another one called the Bridgewater Triangle that you may have heard of as well, down in southeastern Massachusetts. So those are super interesting areas for further research, I think. And not as much has been written on the Bennington Triangle as the Bridgewater Triangle. There's been quite a bit of information and books and TV shows and podcasts done about the Bridgewater Triangle, but there's been a lot of bizarre sightings between UFO, Bigfoot, Dogman, alien creatures, and things like that. But there's been a lot of disappearances, in the Bridgewater Triangle or the Bennington Triangle over in southwestern Vermont, which drops down into the Berkshires as well. In northwestern Massachusetts, that is extremely heavily forested near Mount Greylock in northwestern Massachusetts, and there has been quite a number of Bigfoot sightings up in northwestern Massachusetts as well. So, just an aside note for a little bit of activity in New England.
Boom, that is absolutely excellent. And yeah, quick little story before we do tie this up is the Hockomock Swamp, which is in the Bridgewater Triangle. Actually, a individual I knew that I used to work for, him and his sisters, when they were younger, used to play in that swamp, but they one day found these strange tracks and, well, also heard these strange howls and claimed to have seen a bunch of shadows that looked like upright wolf-like creatures. And yeah, so they never went back into that area. And it's pretty interesting because he is a pretty successful doctor, which doesn't mean you can't be about hoaxing and stuff. But yeah, just pretty interesting to tie that into what you had said right there. And before we let both of you get back to what you need to be doing, is there anything else you would like to touch base on?
No, not a whole lot, man. Like I said, well, hopefully later this year, Todd and I can get back in the saddle and do a couple podcasts. But right now, I mean, I'm just listening to what you're presenting, Kenny. That's something, like Todd mentioned, you're trailblazing and you're doing great work putting together a team and trying to put out the evidence and the facts. And we need more guys like you. Honestly, keep up the good work, brother. And we really do appreciate you having us on the podcast. And like I said, we'd love to have you back on too when we get back in the saddle and get the ball rolling a little bit, on the Dogman Vortex podcast. So I really appreciate you having me tonight, brother.
Having both Shane and I on your show, and I mimic what Shane said when we get back to do a couple Vortex podcasts. We still have a couple of guests that we were going to put on, but we pulled the show, the plug in the show before we had them on. So recontact those folks. There are a couple of really good guests that we're going to have on. So we want to once we get going again, if hopefully we do here this year, and we can bring folks back on. We'd like to have some reappearing guests and have you back on, Kenny, as well, to continue the conversation on the topic. And yeah, who knows, what's out there to be found. And hey, we're ready to receive the information and disseminate it and discuss it, analyze it, and get it out there to the public as much as possible. And hopefully people will come and take a look at the West Coast Dogman Project page. It's still out there, still being maintained by a number of great administrators, and we still try to keep it rolling, even though we're not doing too much on it ourselves at the moment.
Beautiful stuff by both of you. And of course, your links will be up in the description. I'll get the Facebook page up there for everybody and the good old YouTube link. But to the audience, as stated, this will be the conclusion at the moment of the meeting of the Midnight Society. Shane Michael Crisp and of course, Todd Kmetz do have other things they need to attend to as well. But as stated, they are good friends of mine. So you will hear from them either soon back here or maybe a little bit more down the road. You might hear me over there. Either way, make sure to stay in touch with what they're up to and what we're doing here as well. And thanks for hanging out with us tonight, guys.
Thanks, Kenny. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kenny. Thanks, Shane. Talk to you later.
Ooh, you legends, you. If you did make it this far tonight, I truly do adore every single one of you. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Feed the algorithm, and I will catch you very soon.